Those who face eternity easily forget what a lifetime means, what an ending means.
You know it doesn't have to be this way.
No, Kunavine, it does. They need me.
Welcome, End of Dragons Daily 68. Today we're going to be discussing our expectations for the end of the week, or rather even just 5 days away now, when Champions will end, potentially the Icebridge Saga in all is going to end, the day of the Tengu's coming. We might really be about to have some End of Dragons news, and I'm going to highlight some of your responses, what you guys actually expect or what you want to happen. Footage in the background is no longer the scrolling combat text mods. I did get some comments about it, like Riddle Sphinx here, for example, said any idea why when I installed this the skill icons are extremely inconsistent? Yeah, they just are. It's possibly that you're still downloading some of the icons, but ArenaNet actually implemented icons in PvE quite wonkily. A lot of skills have them, a lot of them don't, a lot of them have weird black borders, a lot of them are Guild Wars 1 icons. So even in the best of situations for enemy stuff, they're going to be inconsistent. But like I say, in World vs. World, it's a treat. You should see everything really, really beautifully and learn a lot more names and things that you didn't know before. Anyway, we're not using the scrolling combat text today. What you're actually looking at is obviously Super Adventure Box, but also this is another install. I've got a lot of hard drive space now, one of the luxuries of the new PC, and I'm playing around with Guild Wars 2 here. This is graphics meddling. Trying to create something of a simple preset close to what I had around Path of Fire's release. The advantage here now, though, is I don't really have to cull many players off the screen. I can have ultra shadows, I can have reflections, and it won't compromise on 60 FPS. So as you guys watch my videos over the coming days, please put it on 1440p, put it on 60 FPS. Even if you don't have a 2560 monitor, you'll be able to enjoy better bit rates and stuff being streamed to you. So you guys can let me know what you think about it. There's a depth of field effect in the background here today because I really think it's beautiful, but it can be a bit weird and a little bit fiddly sometimes, so I'm really interested in what you guys think about it. Especially graphics modding and tweaking stuff in the Super Adventure Box is pretty fun as well. I'm also, for this first zone, not going to have any fog, and then for the subsequent zones, they'll actually have some on there. Another quick response from yesterday as well. Chris Corona said, the problem with Fractals, we were discussing that Fractals might be the place to try and capture those traditional MMO gamers that like gear grind. They say the problem with Fractals is not that the devs don't look at them, it's that most players don't look at them. And I actually do agree with you on this. I think that Fractals have had a good amount of updates over the years and continue to. Not just the idea of new islands, but there's actually been a lot of like system updates and improvements there as well. I do see a lot of it as bloat, but the problems with Fractals aren't necessarily born from negligence. I agree with that. In fact, when I made that comment yesterday, they need to look at Fractals more. What I'm really saying is not just Fractals, but how people are driven to them. You know, you do get a mail on your first character at level 80 that tells you to go to the Fractals of the Mist. I think it's just once per account. Maybe every character gets it. And you can hope that a player at that point is still reading their NPC mails and stuff and is enjoying that as a system to direct them around the world. In a lot of ways, the new player experience that they did back during Season 1, stopping all the renown hearts from mailing you all the time, kind of did a lot for this. I think players will see that, but it's maybe not enough. You know, overhauls to the daily system, and we've obviously seen there's a lot of stuff to do daily once you're in Fractals, but external to them that might move people in would go a long way. And the other big problem that Fractals have is people are intimidated by them when they shouldn't be. So many new players, so many casual players are scared of T1 Fractals, when T1 Fractals are like easier in a lot of cases than even Personal Story at this point. You know, some of those T1 Fractals you can solo more comfortably than the Balthazar boss fight at the end of POF. I'm not joking, they really are. It's a low bar. The idea is it slowly builds you into them. They're open for everyone, and people just kind of don't understand that. And that's partly on the community and the players, but as always, I would say the buck stops with the game, and ArenaNet could be doing more in that area. Another little response. Yesterday I mentioned I was going to do a trailer video. William George says, I don't know how you're going to get 20 minutes out of that latest trailer, man. That thing was thinner than the soles of my favorite slippers. Thanks for reminding me to buy some new slippers. I love slippers. I haven't worn any for about a year. Look, it's not that I aim for 20 minutes. I tend to feel pretty confident and happy if I get there, and that seems to be my rhythm. But I think a few of the Champions trailers have ended up less than that, haven't they? And this one might end up as well. I have seen it, obviously, and I do want to do the video, but somehow it's nearly 9 p.m. I'm speaking to the microphone right now, and I'm realizing it probably won't come out today. It is very weird, right, to compare the excitement and enthusiasm we have maybe for this trailer compared to the finale of Season 2's trailer. Anyone who still remembers that event distinctly, or much more recently, of course, the end of Season 3. And, you know, now here we are with Champions. It's a very different tone, isn't it? But you will see the video probably tomorrow. That's my main hope. So one other thing you guys might find interesting is yesterday I did another community poll. I've been getting like one of these a week out or so. I really like this. You can get thousands and thousands of votes on polls. I don't get that on, you know, on Twitter, or I don't get that on Twitch or anything. But like the last poll I did, the one about, what was it, release dates or something? It had like 9,800 votes, 10,000 votes on a poll. You can really get a sense of what's going on here. And it's funny because the proportions seem locked in place really early, and then the numbers just grow and kind of attest to the power of focus group testing. Anyway, I said it's 7 days from now. Tell me what has happened to Jormag and Primordus, because I'm wondering, you know, especially with the trailer, are they both dead? Are neither of them dead? Is only Jormag dead or Primordus? My money, what I would like is neither is dead. And that, of course, got most of the votes from you guys. But it's hard to tell. Is this just what we want, or is this what we really think will happen? ArenaNet might go for it. They might kill them both off. But it's funny to realize now that if neither of them are dead, if we as a community are set on this, then that's gonna profoundly impact End of Dragons and the kind of trailers we get for End of Dragons and stuff. There was hide nor hair of Ice or Fire Dragon before. And it's very weird for me to think that they'll just shrink them off into the background again, and they're sort of a temporary threat, because that's the situation Path of Fire was in. Path of Fire, just before POF, you know, Season 3 was really about the battle of Primordus and Jormag. When I cut together that story montage a couple of weeks ago, I was really struck by how some of the Season 3 trailers were like, 2 dragons and we're caught in the middle, blah, blah, blah. And then they just got, sort of shunt them off to the side so that the Path of Fire story can happen. And then the same thing's happened here in Icebrood Saga, or 2 dragons fighting, and then we'll shunt them off to the side in the middle of the end of Dragons. I can't see that in a certain way, so I'm really not settled. I don't know what they'll do. It's very, very unpredictable. The other option that got a lot of votes, obviously, was Jormag only dead, and the reason for that, I think, is that, you know, this is the Icebrood Saga, and it really feels like a Jormag story. It's just suddenly in Champions, Primordus ended up being a part of the whole thing, and a part of Jormag's motivations and stuff. But, you know, it wouldn't really feel like the complete Icebrood Saga. The Icebrood Saga should end with the end of the Icebrood, right? And Jormag? No? So I kind of agree with that getting some more votes, but there's definitely no consensus on this one, and that was a pretty fun poll. So, some of you guys' predictions for next week. What are we going to get? Bretzel said, I really want them to end Champions with a cool cutscene or trailer for End of Dragons. But if we do have interim content, then I doubt we'll get that. I imagine at the very least, Champions will end with a big cliffhanger of sorts. So the interim content is definitely a thorn in the side. I think that we could still get some kind of concept art thing. It's just, it won't pay off for a while. You know, there's really no big problem with that. And if you think about it, by the way, when you look at like the end of Season 2, there were 2 big cutscenes. There was the main big cutscene, and then there was another one afterwards, which they called like the Easter egg thing. So I think we might even get multiple here. And the idea of a cliffhanger, this is something I really want you guys to think about, because that interview that mentioned the interim content idea, it was vague, but it suggested that the state of the world that Tyria will be in will inform the start of End of Dragons. So the question is the state of the world changing after Champions is over? What is the new state of the world will being? Are these dragons going to win, or are we in a new state because Aureen's gone crazy? Or, you know, what is the idea here? And that would kind of explain why Aureen maybe isn't speaking in the End of Dragons trailer so far. So and that would be kind of funny as well. That would put us into an End of Dragons expansion where there's the Deep Sea Dragon, there's Aureen that's potentially a threat, and these other 2 existing guys that are threats. which would be, you know, very, very, very nuts. Talk about a Dragon Ball by the end. So do think about that idea of this cliffhanger. I think there will be one, and it's going to put us in a new state of the world. What is that state? Hun Hayes has an interesting theory. I think after this episode, there's going to be an epilogue. They did a prologue, which was a full episode. They're not going to just not do an epilogue. And I think there's going to be a cutscene trailer at the end of that. Well, look, the idea that because there was a prologue, there needs to be an epilogue is a good one. But when you actually look at the development of the Icebrood saga, I don't know whether that's really fair to say. Because they've course corrected. They've changed their plans, you know. Champions in general, and everything we've been going through for the past 3/4 of a year, that was not the original plan. And this was born out of crunch and minimal development resources for the saga. So the idea that just because they had all that time and that space to do a really big prologue means we'll get a nice big full epilogue, I don't know. I mean, we might get an epilogue. I think that would be smart, and I think that's more likely than anything else. But to equate it in size to Grothmar and say, oh, we'll get a full release again and we'll get a full map again and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. I'm not really buying it. If they had the time to do full maps still, surely we wouldn't have seen Champions be the way that it was, and with the introduction of DRMs and so on. And again, I think there's positive lessons that they've learned from DRMs, and I'd like to see them have a continuing influence even through all the subsequent content. But you never know. So I think there will be an epilogue, but be careful. There won't be an epilogue just because Grothmar exists, and I don't think it will be on the same scale. This whole comment and response here has just got me thinking about how different Icebrood sagas ended up being. Think about all those horror and creepy and quite, you know, adult themes that were occurring early on when we were out in the ice and the cold and with the whispering, and none of that's really been an influence for ages now. Sean's prediction is I think we'll get a release date for End of Dragons next week. Probably another trailer. I hope for a cutscene in-game, but only if it doesn't feel forced. The Season 2 cutscene for Heart of Thorns was fantastic, while the Season 3 cutscene for Path of Fire felt so forced. I'd rather it just be a YouTube trailer at that point if it doesn't feel right in-game. Well, I don't know whether I'd go so far as to say I'd rather be a YouTube trailer. I really think there's a lot of powerful stuff that they've released on YouTube that deserves to be in game. Again, that story montage I cut together, like those little machinima clips and stuff they essentially did of the Zaitan battle, which make it look better than it actually is because they don't appear in game. I think that sucks. I really like the intro to Heart of Thorns where you leave the Silver Wastes and it plays the Heart of Thorns trailer where we're panning through the jungle and you see the roots like crushing the rock and then forming the shape of a man even though he's made of vines. I think that was all powerful, and I want to see the devs be as efficient as possible. If they can double up and get this stuff in game, I really want to see them do it. That said, the POF one did feel a bit out of place. I'll give you that. But it's funny, I don't think that was out of necessity or anything. It's just that they chose to be kind of metaphorical and poetic and kind of, you know, arty about what the Eye of Janthir was showing us. The Eye of Janthir shows us a ton of stuff that doesn't really come to pass, even though it's meant to be like a premonition of the future. And there's no clarity to where it was showing us. It could have been much more concrete. I mean, they knew what all the story beats and stuff were, surely, for the expansion by that point. But they kept it vague. So I think it's more just the style of the Janthir cutscene that made it feel a bit weird. You know, I look at the Icebrood Saga announcement cutscene, and that thing's beautiful. That's so cool and really gorgeous. Most of those concept art kind of scenes do make it in somewhere, and that one's not. And I think the Icebrood Saga kind of suffers for it, even if it does hint at stuff that doesn't really end up happening, like the Coden on their little, you know, icy pyres as they're pushed out to the waters after they've been killed and so on, and the stuff with the crate and whatever. By the way, do you guys think that that means that whatever crate ideas they had have been pushed into the End of Dragons expansion instead? I mean, Crate and Naga and Forgotten, all these Serpentine races, a potential Serpentine Elder Dragon, they're all in the mix right now, and I think they could be used. The other thing you've said here is obviously the release date. I think that's a great idea. It's kind of already confirmed that it's a 2021 release, but people kind of don't know when. So the devs don't even have to give like a concrete day, but even just giving a quarter, you know, just saying fall, because they're American, they wouldn't say autumn, right? But saying like fall 2021, I think would do a lot. It would, especially like in the broader MMO communities, they kind of have a sense as to when to really start looking around. You know, an explicit date beyond that would be very nice as well, and I think possibly within their grasp. Another comment here about the cutscenes. A lot of you guys were saying this. Alan Michael says, I want them to do End of Dragons like how they did the very end of Season 2 and 3. Teasers for what's to come with their cool concept art-styled cutscenes. Honestly, I would like high-quality cutscenes like we used to get. The last one was the thing with Rylan. That was ages ago. Again, you guys have got to remember, though, it's because they've course-corrected. If you take the Icebridge Saga right up to Drizzlewood 2... it was all pretty high quality. There were good, decent cutscenes. You know, even the in-engine ones with lots of nice mocap and stuff. The devs were doing very well, and I really hope that through my recap series that I'm slowly producing over the coming weeks, that you guys remember that and key into that and continue to acknowledge the good work they've done there, because all of that should creep through into End of Dragons as well. It's just Champions suddenly threw this whole Primordus thing at us, and it really didn't have much capacity to do very much at all, and now it all feels like it was a million years ago. But in terms of the actual content that's come out, I think the devs will have ambitions to do good concept art style cutscenes. We should definitely see this. And by the way, they've played with the art style a lot of times over the years. You know, there's that really cool fancy one around Heart of Thorns release where there was Kaith speaking and it was kind of very flashy. There was the one that looks like the repurposed mobile game. There's the ones that we had at launch. The one with Ritlock fighting the Wyvern. I guess they go to different studios because, you know, it's not all done in-house, right? They go outside, don't they? And they commission people to make these for them. So who knows what art style they'll go with, but hopefully it's something decent. And I like a step up over the Janthea one. I genuinely think most of the Heart of Thorns stuff was better than the POF. Let's go back to the HOT style, I would say. And the last comment I've got for you guys is actually going to segue us into what I want for tomorrow's topic. Maybe even we can get a couple of days. Northerner says, will they bring back those current event bits and bobs to tease us smaller developments while they shift their focus to Cantha? So I'm not sure we'll see directly current events, you know, that whole branding, that whole idea specifically coming back, because, you know, current events were kind of from an era of the game where they could have their expansion being developed, they could have their living world coming out, and they had, you know, a little bit of extra space to throw in some other stuff. Hell, even during Living World Season 4 we had some current events. It's like extra stuff on the side between releases. What we're looking for with the interim content is mainline stuff, right? So I don't think it would be current events, though maybe the scope of what we're doing is somewhere close to what the current events were doing. And don't forget, current events got kind of big after. You remember the current event where you actually go into the mists to do those, you know, mini instances with those collapsing islands, and you were fighting the branded Rift Stalkers or whatever they were. I mean, that might have been one of the last ones we actually saw as well. You never know as well. They might have had ambition to do that kind of stuff for the Icebridge Saga. And then just never ended up going for it. One thing I did really like about current events, though, was how they kind of affected all over Tyria and almost felt like they were going back to fix holes and paper over stuff. Like some of the first current events, the Caladbolg quest chain. It was basically the case that Heart of Thorns didn't have a proper epilogue. It didn't have a good ending. And current events gave it one, you know, where you end up getting to wield Caladbolg yourself in all these various forms. Like, that was really good. Now, the idea that after the Icebridge Saga is over, we've got a bit of a gap to the expansion, and they dedicate updates to adding extra details like that over all this territory and all this subject material we've done recently, that I find really exciting. Like, remember when Palawa died in Corner, and then there was like that Easter egg at the statue where he suggested he was still around or whatever? You could listen to a bit of his propaganda. Little moments like that, you know, and there's been so many areas of the world that we've gone to. Looking back at them, you know how in one of the Dragon Response missions we returned to Ebonhawk, and it's like, oh, it's been like 10 years since the treaty. Are we actually honoring it? Do we actually respect this idea now? Those kinds of updates I think would go a long way for me as a lore enthusiast. They probably wouldn't hold most people over, because I think most people really want to be going to new territories and going to new maps, and you know, this wouldn't be that. But I think that'd be very exciting, especially for like core Path of Fire maps. What I'm kind of hungry for right now is POF content, because yes, we're in the Icebridge Saga, and yes, we've had a Living World season, but to me it still feels like we're in the Path of Fire era, and bookending it in some way by looking once again at Amnoon and whatever's going on at the casino and stuff. That would feel somehow really appropriate, and that would be pretty fun to me. But so that is the question. I swear I had another comment I was going to highlight today. One of you guys mentioned Visions of the Past. Visions of the Past are a great idea. Maybe we'll get one Visions of the Past for the epilogue here, and that will have something to do with Cantha. Remember how the Sunqua Peak Fractal was kind of a bit of a glimpse? Maybe we'll get another one. So that leads me now to the next topic. I want to hear what you guys want or think will happen, we'll do the same kind of thing as we did today. For the interim content, all right? Because we will be in the interim content 7 days from now. You know, we'll be in that window. What the hell are Arena going to fill it with? What kind of size do you guys expect? Is it all going to be Cantha specific? Is it going to be core Tyria specific? Where will they go? Will there be features? Is this finally going to be world versus world alliances to tide us over? The armory to tide us over? Legendary mounts they'll throw in right at the end. That will be their bookend for POF. You know, there's so many fun ideas. Really have a think about it. Drop your comments down below. And thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll be platforming them tomorrow. And I'm getting the ball going here. So we will be End of Dragons daily again. Thank God. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks so much for supporting and watching. Please do consider Patreon, which again I'm still getting on top of, but I haven't mentioned all month, and I suspect has actually probably been shrinking again. So if you guys like any of this, please do consider it. Don't forget we're still recruiting with the guilds, ready for End of Dragons, and I'll see you on the next one tomorrow. Take care, guys. Oh yeah, and tell me what you think about the graphics as well. It's not complete, but I think it's a good start, right? And I'll look to chaining this together with the scrolling combat and Guild Wars 2 Radial and all kinds of other mods all at once. So it's a bit of a project.